The first question is, can we do it? I suppose we can. The second question is, what happens if we do it? What does it really mean? And what will be the impact overseas? I don't know. I do know that right now, there is no plan among the BRICS nations, and BRICS is growing very, very rapidly. Mm-hmm. There is no plan among the BRICS states to develop their own currency, but they are committed to backing everything with gold. So there is a tendency right now for people around the world to say, I put my faith in American fiat currency that's not backed by gold, or do I go to BRICS where currency will be backed by gold?
Discussions about revaluing the United States gold reserves have emerged amid record-high gold prices, driven by geopolitical instability, inflation concerns, and speculation about potential changes in gold valuation. Currently, the U.S. Treasury's gold holdings are valued at $42 per ounce, a figure established decades ago. Advocates suggest updating this valuation to reflect the current market price, which has surged to approximately $2,900 per ounce, a 10% increase this year and a 40% rise since early 2024. Proponents argue that revaluing the gold reserves could significantly bolster the U.S. Treasury's balance sheet. By adjusting the valuation to current market rates, it's estimated that an additional $800 billion could be injected into the Treasury General Account. This infusion of capital might reduce the necessity for issuing new Treasury bonds, thereby potentially lowering national debt levels and mitigating fiscal deficits. Furthermore, such a revaluation could enhance the credibility of the U.S. dollar by reinforcing its value with substantial gold assets. This move might also stabilize domestic prices and protect foreign commerce against the adverse effects of depreciated foreign currencies. Such a move is also expected to positively influence the gold market as it acknowledges the metal's increased value and could spur other countries to make similar moves. In a recent interview, retired U.S. Army Colonel Douglas McGregor outlines the importance of revaluing the United States gold reserves, particularly amid efforts by the Donald Trump administration to reduce national debt levels. There has been no full audit of the country's gold reserves since 1953. In his interview, Colonel McGregor talks about the Trump administration's efforts to reform the U.S. economy and reduce the nation's dependence on other countries, particularly China. He warns that while these reforms are urgently needed, they would cause a lot of pain for Americans. That's why the Colonel advocates investing in tangible assets like gold, both at the national level and for small retail investors. As we present clips from the Colonel's interview, please like and share this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notifications bell for more videos like this. We appreciate the support and hope you enjoy the video.
Well, first of all, let's go back to your initial statement. They think we need to be overseas when that's not really true. You have to attack the narrative. The fundamental narrative has to be exposed as false. If you can't expose it as being false and demonstrate to people clearly that Americans are instinctively correct, what counts most is what happens here, not what goes on overseas, and point to the reality that no, these countries are not existential threats to us, but the drug cartels, the open border, the criminality that springs from all of that, the illegal human trafficking, that is an existential threat to our republic, not Russia, not China. People say, well, the Chinese are doing this or that, everything else. If you want to stop the Chinese doing things you don't like, you need to take the following actions. Number one, close the border. Nothing gets in anymore. And the second part is you've got to secure our ports and our coastlines. Right now, there are as many illegal human trafficking incidents in Los Angeles, San Francisco, Portland, as you're going to find down on the border, up on the Great Lakes. It's like a sieve up there for drugs and illegal human trafficking. Same thing on the border with Canada and Washington State. Those things have to be dealt with. Then you look at the Chinese in your country and ask the question, why are they where they are? I mean, this goes all the way back to the Clinton era. Some of you may remember under Bill Clinton, there was this, outrageous event involving a Chinese scientist at Los Alamos who had gained access to all sorts of nuclear secrets. involving new nuclear weapons and so forth. And everybody was shocked and amazed. And suddenly Bill Clinton had to give money back to the Chinese who had tried to fund his campaign, or in fact did. This has got to stop. That's what you have to put an end to. You don't go to war with them. You simply stop those things. And by the way, the Chinese are not going to find that surprising at all. The Chinese are, compare it to someone who sits in a room and you leave cash on the desk, and then you leave the room. Well, the Chinese says, if you're dumb enough to leave the cash there, I'm going to steal it. Takes the cash and goes out of the window. Well, this is the stupidity that we have been guilty of for so long. We can stop that. We can absolutely stop it. What we can't do is we're not going to be able to tariff them into submission. That's not going to happen. We're not going to outbuild them or out-manufacture them. They have more manufacturing capacity today in China than North America and Europe combined. So we need to wake up and smell the coffee on that particular point. And then the question is, when does anything really happen that makes a difference? And I think, again, we got to go back to the economy and the financial system. Mm-hmm. And I think, as I'm sure your viewers who listen to other very brilliant financial analysts, one of whom is Alistair MacLeod. I don't know if you've had him on to talk to him, but his commentary over the last month or two about events in the London Metals Exchange and the gold inventories, they're priceless. You need to watch that, because what's happening in London is going to eventually happen here. London's bluff is being called. The banks there are not solvent. The gold is not on hand. What does this mean? Well, I think it means the end of the United Kingdom financially and economically very shortly. I'm surprised they're still doing anything over there. I think Starmer will be gone. There'll be a huge shakeup in that country. So first, London, and then the question is what happens here, and how long does it take before that meltdown finds its way to the United States? When that occurs, all bets are off. That's when you begin to see the opportunity for massive change. Because right now you can't get the president to talk about reducing defense. In fact, there's discussion right now on the Hill, and I'm sure he's aware of it, of adding $200 billion to the existing defense budget. Everyone in Washington lives on Fantasy Island. If they're not on Fantasy Island, they're on Epstein Island. What's the difference? And so you can't get them to see reality until reality runs them over.
The London Bullion Market Association, LBMA, is currently experiencing significant delays in gold deliveries, with waiting times extending from the usual few days to up to 4 weeks. This disruption is primarily due to a substantial transfer of gold to the United States, driven by concerns over potential U.S. import tariffs and the opportunity to capitalize on price differences between COMEX futures and London spot prices. The surge in gold shipments to New York has led to a notable decrease in the readily available gold stock in London, causing liquidity challenges. Market participants are now increasingly seeking to borrow gold from central banks to meet their obligations. This situation has also resulted in longer queues at the Bank of England for gold withdrawals. These issues have raised concerns about potential similar challenges in the U.S. gold market. The significant influx of gold into COMEX-approved warehouses in New York has increased inventories by 70%, reaching levels not seen since August 2022. This rapid accumulation has led to speculation about possible liquidity strains in the U.S., especially if the demand for physical gold continues to rise. According to Colonel McGregor, these are all good reasons for the audit and revaluation of the United States gold reserves before everything becomes extremely chaotic.
The first question is, can we do it? I suppose we can. The second question is, what happens if we do it? What does it really mean? And what will be the impact overseas? I don't know. I do know that right now there is no plan among the BRICS nations, and BRICS is growing very, very rapidly. Mm-hmm. There is no plan among the BRICS states to develop their own currency, but they are committed to backing everything with gold. So there is a tendency right now for people around the world to say, I put my faith in American fiat currency that's not backed by gold, or do I go to BRICS where currency will be backed by gold? Well, I guess I'll go to BRICS. I think that's the dilemma right now that we confront. Punishing BRICS, attacking BRICS is not going to work. It's not going to make any difference at all. If anything, it'll accelerate the determination to replace SWIFT, to replace all those institutions with new ones, because they don't want to be under our thumb. So to tell you, frankly, could it be done? I suppose so. Should it? That's another issue. I don't know. First of all, I don't even know how much gold we've got.
Right. We need an audit for sure.
And nobody wants to audit it. Remember, Ron Paul years ago said, let's audit the Federal Reserve, not just Federal Reserve, but let's audit the gold holdings.
Right.
You know, I want to walk down the aisle in Fort Knox. The last time we saw the inside of Fort Knox was in some James Bond movie. You know, nobody's been in there. I never got in there, and I served at Fort Knox twice. Wow. So I'd love to know what's actually there. I'd also like to know what's under the banks in New York City, which is what we're dealing with now in the city of London. Is everything there? So to go to your second question, I think the audit is unavoidable if you're going to do what you just suggested. There has to be someone who can confirm what the gold holdings are. I don't know that anybody wants to go there right now.
Well, the writing seems to be on the wall that this US dollar-centric system that worked for us for quite some time is coming to an end, and there might be a return to a neutral reserve asset. So obviously I think of gold or Bitcoin. What do you think is going to happen going forward? How will this play out?
Well, I guess I should stop and think, or get my bowl of water out like Nostradamus did under the full moon and try to see into the future, but I can't. So I can't answer that question. I don't know. And you're better off talking to somebody like Luke Groman and certainly Alistair McLeod. I think Alistair is a very hard-nosed realist, and he'll probably give you a really tight, well-argued answer that is indisputable. So I would defer to somebody like Alistair McLeod. And of course, there's James Grant. There are some others out there who are equally gold-oriented. When I was at the conference, I was asked, what do you think about the future and the dollar and everything else? And I said, anything that comes out of the ground is going to be extremely valuable. And I mean anything that grows, if it's food, if it's minerals, precious metals, whatever it is, hard assets will be everything. And I think that's the world we're headed into now. And how we cope with that is anyone's guess, because we're back to, what have we really got? Let's inventory and find out. Nobody wants to do that. And that's what's happened in London with the metals exchange. Mm-hmm. So we're slowing deliveries of gold. Why would you do that? In the past, those kinds of deals have been negotiated and executed within a few days. All of a sudden now it's weeks before we can do anything. That raises ominous feelings all over the world. People are beginning to wonder. Remember, there used to be a tunnel between J.P. Morgan and across the street, the so-called Federal Reserve and the banks, and nobody ever knew what was really going through that tunnel. How much gold has gone through it? Which way did it go? Where is it? I think we don't know. And so I'm very reluctant to answer that. Well, I think we have to go back to where we started with the 10-year Treasury. How long can you artificially suppress that interest rate? Mm-hmm. Because who is going to buy your debt? Increasingly, almost nobody. How much of it do we own? How much toxic debt is sitting on the Fed's books? That's something else that Ron Paul has been talking about for years. Mm-hmm. My view is that we will be unable to suppress those interest rates, and we will break the 5% ceiling. If that happens, it's game over. We can't service the debt, which goes back to the argument right now for moral courage. Where's the moral courage to say we've got to make profound cuts? Now, someone will say, well, what if your profound cuts don't work? I can't answer that except to say, then you'll get Armageddon. But if you don't try the cuts first and try to restructure your debt with your creditors, Armageddon will come quicker, faster, and be more devastating than it will if you try to cut and streamline your government and take the tough medicine. Nobody wants to tell the American people, I'm very sorry, but you're living in a bubble, a bubble of artificial prosperity. It can't go on anymore. And so I'm going to adopt the following measures. Nobody wants to say that, but that's desperately needed. And the sooner we do it.
In several interviews, Colonel Douglas McGregor has warned that the U.S. and the global economy are heading toward catastrophe. He argues that the U.S. has weaponized its control over the global monetary system, prompting major economies like China, India, and Iran to seek alternatives to the dollar. This shift threatens the dollar's dominance in international trade, potentially weakening the U.S. economy. Additionally, he believes that the U.S. is overextending itself militarily, particularly in conflicts such as the proxy war in Ukraine against Russia. He contends that America's military-industrial capacity is struggling to sustain these commitments, which could lead to severe economic strain. Furthermore, McGregor warns that U.S. actions in the Middle East, particularly its military support for Israel, could escalate into a broader regional war, potentially drawing in multiple Islamic states against both Israel and the U.S. This instability, he suggests, could trigger economic turmoil on a global scale. Ultimately, McGregor sees these developments as leading to an unavoidable economic and geopolitical crisis. As the global financial system faces increasing uncertainty, McGregor and analysts like Alasdair MacLeod emphasize that precious metals, particularly gold and silver, could serve as safe havens in the event of a severe economic downturn. With trust in fiat currencies eroding and central banks stockpiling gold at record levels, it's clear that many nations are preparing for a shift away from the dollar-dominated system. If McGregor's predictions hold true, the coming economic storm could accelerate this transition, leaving those who have secured their wealth in hard assets better positioned to weather the fallout. The question now is, how soon will these changes unfold, and what will the global financial order look like on the other side? Are we witnessing the early stages of a historic realignment, or is there still time to change course? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this analysis insightful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more in-depth discussions on the future of our economy and global stability. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.